I'm like, oh, Jesus. I said, Lord, if it's time for them to go, bless them, just bless them, Lord. It's like the, 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 the headache, because this work, I always tell them it's hard work. It's not hard. It's heart. And they say, this is hard. I'm like, it's not hard. If you really putting your heart into it and you're seeing these people are broken and we're broken. So how do we mend them like we were being mended? How do you just continue to work and do the work and you're being mended while you're working? God is working on us while we're working. And it's like, we're not perfect. So we can't go in there and say that we are the professionals or that I'm the one that knows it all. No, you got to stay leaning and depending on Jesus because we don't
Yeah.
we don't know it all. So don't go in there and thinking that we are the perfect. Oh, they always say, yeah, y'all are the professionals. Y'all know how to do the restorative practices. Y'all are the practitioners. I said, no, I'm not. I'm just being led and following. Even if they're not believers. I said, Jesus is my leader.
Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Up Next. Today, I talk with a dear friend, Kim Patton of Austin, Texas. How are you, Kim?
I'm good. Thank you, Tommy. How are you?
Not bad. Now, Kim, how long have you lived in Austin?
All my life.
Oh, all your life. Okay. So was there another period when you went to university or college that you live anywhere besides Austin?
Just Houston. I was trying to go to grad school in Washington, D.C. because I wanted to go to Howard University
Mhm.
with my best friend who I grew up with from all the way from kindergarten. We graduated high school and college. And she went off to go to Howard University. And then she said, come on with me. But God said, I'm breaking y'all up. Because we were no good together. We used to party, party, party.
Well, we think of Austin as this entrepreneurial, busy tech, all of that, but that was not. I remember in high school when we always write about Austin, it was just a capital city that we just had to memorize. How has Austin
Yes.
changed over the years?
Oh my gosh, it is. It kind of reminds me of a little bit of Chicago in some parts, like downtown. Then that reminds me of San Francisco in some areas. So it's changed because of all the tech industry that's coming from California. When I was growing up, it was just a small little city. Everybody knew each other. The highways, as you can tell now, are awful because
Yes.
we didn't have all the traffic. But now
Yes.
everybody's moving into tech. Austin, and they didn't forecast for it. And so it's like, now let's start build a new highway. But now we have all these people here. So it's like,
Yes. It's the first time I'm seeing overpasses, everything. I said, wow, this is different. And the last time I was there, wow, the traffic is so much more different than even 5 years ago.
yes, 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 yes. The transformation has really made a big change here. It's like from small to big, but it's a small big city because everybody's cramped in this little bitty city, but everybody thinks it's growing. But
Yeah. Kim, what do you do for a living? I know you and your husband Sherwin have started a ministry. What does it do?
Well, we do restorative practices, restorative justice in the community and inside of the school system. So we call it restorative practices inside of the school because we're trying to get teachers and students to restore and practice what is good and restore the broken relationships that happen on the campus or at home. And then in the community, we call it restorative justice because that's where the police and everybody gets involved in the community. So how do we restore this justice? With the justice system and the community and build a bridge to make a connection and we all be one. So how do we build this true community within the
Yeah.
schools, the churches, wherever we touch the God has placed us inside of, how do we rebuild this community?
How did the organization start, Kim?
Well, I was a counselor inside of Travis County Jail. Starting in 2004, I got hired as a counselor, working inside of the jail, just really working with mental illness. Are you suicidal? Have you taken your meds? And then a year in, the sheriff wanted to start this violence program to help these men
Mm.
stop their violence. And none of the other counselors wanted to do it. So I raised my hand and said, I'll do it because it was interesting. I didn't really know what I was doing, didn't have the experience, had the degree, but had no experience in working inside of a jail. And those men read me. They knew that I was fresh and green. They called me green, that I did not really know what I was doing. But God led me through, and He allowed those men to change my heart because I went in judging, not really wanting to make money, chasing the money. And God said, I'm getting ready to get inside of
Very,
this
very. Kim, now when you were growing up, what did you think you were going to do?
I had no the back long time ago, no blacks were allowed at the University of Texas. So they had to start their own college here in Austin, which is called Houston Tillerson, Huston. Everybody think it's Houston, but it's Houston, Huston Tillerson. So it's that was the black college for us. And so that's where I went and applied, and I quit IRS, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. God,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I just said, I just want to go to school because I saw all my other friends doing it. So I had no idea.
yeah.
I was
And
lost. Just,
isn't it strange how every single one of us had different directions? Like, for instance, I thought I was going to go to med school at WashU, and after first semester, I realized, no, I don't want to do it. Well, I should go to business school, but what am I going to do with my business degree? I don't know. Where's there certain people in my classmates? I just want to go into finance. I want to do this. I actually didn't know what I was going to do.
I didn't either. Because at first I was going to major in accounting, and I hate numbers, but I worked for IRS. So I was just saying, oh, yeah, I'm going to get an accounting degree. Didn't really want that. Then I went to school and said, okay, I'm going to go to sociology, social work. Didn't really know what I was going to do with that either. Because after I graduated from undergrad, I was like, I worked at HEB. And then I was like, okay, Lord, what am I supposed to be doing? And then I got a nanny job, and that's when I was in grad school in Houston. In Houston, Texas, I moved, became a nanny, a live-in nanny with some friends that I knew, and went to grad school.
Yeah. Kim, for those who are sitting here listening and they ask you, what happens when you just don't know what to do? Kim, what advice would you give to people who are wrestling with that question? Because I meet a lot of different people. I don't like my job, or am I called to do this? I don't feel like I'm called to do it. I'm just going through a routine. What's your advice that you would give to people?
Whew. Well, for one, first they need to find a relationship in Christ because I didn't have a relationship. I was going to church, but I didn't have a relationship with Christ. And that's why I felt I was just wandering around, like, what am I supposed to do? Really wanting to make money, but not knowing what I want to do with the money. So really just getting in touch with self and just, if you don't have a relationship with Christ, at least try to get into one with him and read the word and just seek and just pray. Just simple prayer. Just say, Lord, show me, please, what am I supposed to be doing? Because I didn't know how to do that back then. I was just really chasing the dollar, looking for advice from people who were not really having a relationship with Christ. So I was getting the world's point of view. And so I was lost. But now I see these young people that I've been working with that are like 23-year-olds to 28-year-olds. They're seeking Christ. They're in the Word. I do a Bible study that's led by young people who are hungry for Christ, even though they say, I really don't know what God wants me to do, but that's why I need to get in this Word. And I'm seeing the transformation in these young ladies that now that they're really looking into the Word instead of for the world, um, they're, they're hearing God clear now. It's like, okay, now I know what I'm supposed to be doing. At least I'm heading in the
Yeah.
right direction.
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes when you say you just got to take the next best step and then say, Lord, wherever you place me, I'm going to be faithful to where
I'm
you
gonna be
place me
faithful to
now,
where
but
you
I'm going to
place me.
pray for open doors or closed doors as you see
Yes,
fit.
exactly, exactly. So yeah, and if He places you somewhere, then say, Lord, okay, let me see you in this,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
not
yeah,
and
yeah,
and
yeah.
not just my gratification, but let me see
Yeah,
you. Mhm.
because you literally may be sitting there and said, man, but I don't like my job. It's boring. It's meaningless. But have you ever
Yes.
thought that maybe he has placed you right there to learn a certain set of skills or experience
Oh
to
my
prepare you for
gosh,
success?
yes. Yes, because I tell the young people that work with Life Anew, you know, I can see their facial expressions that they're tired. They're ready to go to the next season. So I always say Life Anew is just an incubator for you. God is He's digging out all the weeds and the stuff that's not good, stirring up in you, and He's tilling your garden to take you to the next step. So while you're
Yeah,
here with
yeah,
Life Anew, He's getting you ready for their next season, but just take
yeah.
advantage of why he has you here to get you ready from the
Yeah, yeah.
inside out.
Speaking of inside out, weeds, tilling, all of that stuff. the heart and the inner life of a leader is very important for you. Why is that, Kim?
Yes. Because I used to lead from the head instead of the heart. So when you're dealing with the heart, when you're leading with the heart, you're really entailed in you have a heart for it. Whatever you're doing, you're not just doing it to be doing it because your heart is in it. My heart was not in my work before. My heart is in this in what I'm doing now because I the, I just thank God for those men in the jail because my heart was not in it at first. I was there just to say, okay, I got a paycheck because I had been laid off for a whole year, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna take this job. But then once the Lord started tearing off and peeling off all those ugly stuff off my heart and getting to the really root of the heart of for me, I love my job. Even though I wasn't making any money, uh, but he provided. He said, stop looking at the money. Fix your heart. Stop judging people. Stop making assumptions. Stop thinking that you're all of that in a bag of chips and you're not. And just do what I tell you to do while I have you in this space.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Kim, who taught you that? Was did you have a role model who helped? Because a lot of times I talk with people, they don't do a good job of reflecting. You've done
Mm.
a great job. You're able to ask yourself the hard questions. You're very self-aware. Who taught that to you?
The men in the jail. God used
Yeah.
those men. They were all violent men, and the one he used, he was a Mexican mafia. So he was in a gang coming out of the Mexican mafia. So they had him in this little bitty box, no windows, no human contact. And I had to, he was on my caseload. And so I went to visit him, and he could tell I didn't know what I was doing. And he was like, I don't need you to tell me nothing. And I was afraid because he was tatted from head to toe. And he's like, I just need you to listen. That's all I need you to do. And I'm like, okay. And if I hadn't listened, instead of pushing back and saying, no, I'm the counselor, you're going to listen to me, I don't think I'd be doing what I'm doing today because he said, this is what I need. I don't need you to judge me because of all the attacks or because of what I've done. I just really need you to be here to listen to me. And then once I started listening to him, because I had to see him every day, the Lord said, this is the work I'm calling you to listen, to not to judge, and to realize that these are my sons. And those
Yeah.
were my role models. Those were the school didn't do it, the church didn't do it. It was God using the broken men because I was broken. He used them to transform my heart.
Interesting. Hey, I'm telling you, you could write a book about leadership lessons from jail or things that you learned. Who would
I
have
thought
thought?
about that, but I don't know how to do it.
Who would have thought somebody from the Mexican mafia would help you grow into such an important leadership role or a skill like that?
Yes, and now he's deceased. He became like my brother, and he got out. I didn't think he was ever going to get out of jail, and I didn't think I was going to ever, be face to face with him and out in the world. But they shipped him out of state because when you're coming out of the gang, you have to be moved. He came
Yeah.
back.
Ah,
He was like, I got to come home, and he remembered me because I used to write him, and so he wrote Greater Mount Zion Church where I used to go to church, and he would write to letters. He would write back and forth. So when he came back, he called the church. He said, "Is Kim
yeah.
Assurance still at Greater Mount Zion?" And they said no because we had already left. And he said, "But can you give me that number?" They said, "No, but give me yours." And they gave me his number. We called him and prayed. And Assurance was like, "Yeah, he's back in town. He's still a part of Mexican mafia. Really, you're never out of it. You just decide not to be a part." Uh, and so we prayed. We called him, and he said, "Hey, I'm town. Let's go to lunch." And we said, "Meet us at church." And he met us at church. We didn't think he was going to come. I never had any interaction with him outside, but his heart was just, he said he didn't know how to be normal and he wanted to be normal. And my heart bled and was so hurt because he wanted to change but didn't know how to live without drinking and drugging. He was back on the drugs again, but he came to church high, but he was coming to church with us. And saw him at the grocery store in 2020, right when COVID hit, turned his life around, was getting ready to move into Community First Village in a tiny
Yeah.
home,
Yeah.
and God took him home. He got sick.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
He
Wow.
got he got his life together. He got off the drugs. Was working with a church, and Lord, the God said, "I got you where I need you,"
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
and he
Yeah.
took
Yeah.
him on
Yeah.
home. So that was
Yeah.
when I heard that I cried like a baby because he was my teacher.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Wow, I love that story. Love, love, love that story.
Yes.
Yeah. Kim, in the early days of the organization that you and your husband started, how hard was it to start a startup? Because I mean, even with Resource
Whew.
Global, the first year you're saying, "Wow, this is a great idea," and then you get a little funding, and then by year two, three, four, you're trying to prove yourself. You're working through. You can't really hire someone. You're saying, "Wow, the luxury, the excitement is over. Now I'm working on the growing pains." What was it like for you in the early days?
Ooh, I left March of '09, so I left the jail. No money. I just heard God say, it's time to step out and do what you're doing in the jail in the community. Because my supervisor was getting ready to retire, so they had ended the program anyway. And I'm like, I don't want to go back down to the central booking where you're just checking in, checking check boxes. I love working with these men to see the transformation of their hearts from being violent to being allowing God to lead their lives. And so I quit, and I told Sherwin God is saying for me to move, to step out in faith. Sherwin was still working for the bus company. He used to drive city buses, but he was getting ready
Mm,
to start being the missions pastor at that time. Right, I think a year after I quit, Pastor Clark wanted him to become the missions pastor at the church. And so I said, God is calling me to do this ministry. And he said, okay, if God is speaking to you, then I'm gonna follow you. And I stepped out on faith. I left my job in '09, had no idea, no money, no nothing. I worked with one judge who allowed me to use his courtroom for to hold my groups, because he was doing the one court ordering the men and the women to come to the program to learn how to stop their violence, because I was doing what I was doing in the jail, helping them stop their violence, but I was doing it on the inside. Now I'm outside doing it in the community. And this judge says, yeah, I love this program. I want to help you with it. And so I had no money, was not getting paid, living off of one income. Come 2014, it started growing. The judge was all these men. I had like 5 groups going on at one time. So I had to move out of the courtroom to this church that let me use some space. But they had enough rooms that I had 5 groups of men, violent men, going on at one time. And Sherwin was still
mm.
at working at the church, but I said, Sherwin, I need help. God is extending this. And he's like, well, yeah, we won't have any money. I said, well, I know, but God is calling us, but trust him. We still didn't have any money. In 2014, Sherwin quit his job. We sold our house. We lived off of that money for a year. It lasted for a year. So we moved to an apartment, paid rent for a year, hadn't gotten any contracts yet. We were just barely, I don't know, it was our God. But,
Yeah.
then after 2014, he quit, and we got our first contract with Austin Independent School District, working, doing restorative on the campuses. But we were still working with the men coming out of the jail. 2017, we stopped doing the batterers intervention prevention group with the men and focused on the schools, because we wanted to catch them in the schools before they got to the age of the men that we were dealing with in the jail. And then that's when it just started kicking off. We had no money. We had no business plan written out. We were just really ordered, just following the steps that God had ordered.
Yeah. What was your secret? Somebody was listening to you and they said, Kim, what was your secret to getting through? What was your secret to persevering? At what point you probably thought of, oh man, let's just quit, let's find
Yes,
some jobs, all of
yes,
that. What was the secret that you could use to encourage people by?
yes. The secret is, if God called you to it, truly, if He really called you to do what He's called you to do, then He's not going to fail you. It may get tough, but He says, "I will never leave you nor forsake you." And so, just hang on to the Word, find the Scripture. That's what I had to. I found that Scripture that God will never put more. He'll never leave me nor forsake me. And so I had to believe that. So it was not just reading the Word; I had to believe it. And so it was
Yeah.
like, one year, 2017, we didn't have any contracts. We did have to do a little bit of Uber and stuff like that. But God said, I'm not calling you to do that. So then that's when he said, I got you, but do you believe me? And I'm like, I believe you, Lord. And so I stopped doing Uber. I stopped doing Uber Eats. Sherman did Uber. I was doing Uber Eats. And I said, God is not calling us to do that. So we were able to go on to a training in Baltimore. And from that training, we just God opened up the door when we got back. So
Yeah, yeah,
really
yeah,
just sticking to knowing that he called you to it. So if he called you, truly called you to it, he's not gonna forsake you.
and sometimes it also reminds me as I'm hearing is that means a lot of times if he's not going to leave you, don't have certain expectation of how he should act. You just
That's
have to
right.
trust.
Trust.
Too often we get in trouble. It says, okay, if you're going to respond, this is the way I want you to respond. It doesn't work that way.
No, at all. And then believing what his word says. Do you believe? He kept asking me, Kim, do you believe me that I'm not gonna harm you? And I'm like, okay, you're right. I'm not a man, he said, that I should lie. So believe me that I'm going to take care of you. And
Yeah,
man,
yeah,
he
yeah,
has. It hasn't been easy, but nothing
yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
easy. But with him,
Now,
it's possible.
with the organization now, how big of a staff do you have now?
We have, I think it's 25 of us.
Yeah,
Uh, so
from one person to two, right? The pressure never goes away. Even
no,
though you've gotten so big, oh my gosh, the pressure is actually even more because you
it's
know all
more.
these people.
You
Yeah,
get all these different personalities, and I'm like, oh Jesus! I said, Lord, if it's time for them to go, bless them, just bless them, Lord. You know, it's like the 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 headache because this work. I always tell them it's hard work. It's not hard. It's heart. And they say this is hard. I'm not. It's not hard. If you really putting your heart into it, and you're seeing these people are broken, and we're broken. So how do we mend them like we were being mended? How do you just continue to work and do the work and you're being mended while you're working? God is working on us while we're working. And it's like we're not perfect, so we can't go in there and say that we are the professionals or that I'm the one that knows it all. No. You gotta stay leaning and depending on Jesus. Because
yeah, yeah,
we
yeah,
don't know it all. So don't go in there and thinking that we are the oh, they always say, yeah, y'all are the professionals. Y'all know how to do the restorative practices. Y'all are the practitioners. I said, no, I'm not. I'm just being led and following. Even if they're not believers. I said, Jesus is my leader.
yeah, 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 yeah. Kim, let me ask you a private question. A lot of times is like for you as an African American woman, do you feel like a lot of times because of your role and all that stuff, you're respected as a female leader, or do you feel like you still have to work at it? Is that still an issue that you have to deal with?
Yes, I have to work at it. I have to show proof of my bank statements, of all my data. I just got to show them that this is the work that I'm doing, and this is proof that what I'm doing works. And so I got to go that extra mile to show them that, hey, I am a black female, but God has blessed me to be able to do this. And so since He's blessed me to do it, it's like He's given me the tools.
Yeah. The reason I say this is there was this Asian woman that I met. She was over at Sunday service, and a lot of times she's been invited with Stanford and all these reputable organizations. She says, "Tommy, even as a young Asian woman, when I walk in amongst a room of men, immediately their thought is, "Oh, are you taking notes for us today? Oh, are you here to take our lunch orders?" And she says, I used to get so angry, but I had to focus myself to realize." I deserve to be in this room because of my skill. No matter what you say will not distract me from knowing that I have a place in here.
Amen. Yes, that is so true. A lot of times when I go in the room with men, I get introduced. Oh, this is Sherwin's wife.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not Kim. I'm not Kim. I'm Sherwin's wife. And
yeah,
then,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
as
yeah.
if where she's okay, she can come in because she's Sherwin's wife. But if I were not Sherwin's wife, would I be allowed to come into the room?
Yeah, yeah. And Kim, I'm glad that you said this because I remember even going to Romania and in Cluj, where we're starting a Resource Global cohort there. When some of the female leaders introduced themselves, they said, "I am so and so. I am the wife of so and so." And I asked them, "Why do you guys do that?" They said, "We don't know. That's what all people do here." And so they
Really?
said, "That's a good point." And it's just embedded sometimes that we have to help them understand how do you think outside the box.
Exactly. Yes. And I have to tell myself, because I used to do it myself. Oh, yeah, I'm Sherwin. Because if they didn't know me, I would go, oh, I'm Sherwin's wife.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
stopped recently. I've said I'm trying to stop that and just say I'm Kim Patton.
Okay, so let me ask you a quick question. Like, my wife would never work with me. gosh, I think I would drive her crazy. You and your husband, who does what? How do you guys figure out which personality? How do you guys work through some of these things?
So Sherwin is the one that goes out to speak in the public a lot. Uh, a lot of people say, Kim, you're able to do it. I said, yeah, I'm able to do it, but they always call him, and so he's mainly over there doing the stuff that he's going to be politically correct. And I'm the one that I'm in the schools. I go talk to the single moms. So I'm working with a lot of single moms, helping them focus on what is God calling you to do, even though you have these children. So I'm over here and he's over there, and we may sometimes be in the same meeting. Sometimes, like yesterday, we had to go to City Hall because, of course, you know the federal funding there.
Yeah, yeah,
So we were
yeah,
together in that space, but then he had to leave and go to another meeting, and so I stayed with the team because they needed us to continue to stay at City Hall. So we don't really be in spaces too often together. So I think that's one good thing that he's over there, I'm over here, or if we are here
yeah.
at the house, he's upstairs in the office, I'm down here, or either I go to the front house and use that office. So
Yeah, yeah. Like for you, what is it that you do that when you do it, time flies? Is it the project management? Is it the operations? Is it the one on one? You say, Tommy, this is what I love doing. Like for instance, one of the things I realized, I said, oh, I enjoy managing employees. I don't like managing employees.
I don't need that. No, I don't like managing projects. I like to go and work with those single mom. God has placed these single moms in my life and grandmas that are raising their children, and so I'm building this safe space where I call it or a brave space for them to come and just release because they have all these kids and they really don't have time for themselves, but to realize who are you really, and so I want to walk them through inside out, and so that's where I love it. And the young women that are ages 20, 23 to like 28, I'm working with them. Time just flies when I'm working with them. So I
Yeah, yeah,
love doing that. Allowing them to see who they truly are because I had a problem finding out who am I until I was like late 40s, almost
yeah.
50. Like, who is Kim? You know? And so that's where my pastime is. Not managing people, no. Just
Yeah. And Kim, when you speak to these young ladies in their mid 20s, what do you say to them that gets everything to click versus them saying, "Ah, Kim, you're a different stage of life. You don't
yeah.
understand." But what is it that you say to them that said, "Oh, yeah, I get it."
I said, no, I was once young, but I was nowhere where you are right now. I said, I was in church. I was carrying the Bible. I wasn't reading the Bible. I said, but you ladies, y'all are reading it and you're studying and you're making me study and you're making me go deep. I said, so keep doing that. Don't get involved with a man that is not where you are because if he's not trying to read and study, then he's gonna bring you to where he is, and then you're gonna fall off. I said because that's what I did. I just tell him my story. That's what I did. I messed up. I was not in a relationship with Christ like you ladies are, or I was not even in a career like you are in now. It's like so don't mess up. Don't wait until you're 40 and 50. And so it kind of catches their ear, and then they tell me their story of what they did in their teenage years. I said, but you're not far from your teenage years. I was 50, almost 50. So God is shaping and grooming you now. So I'm grateful that you all allow me in your space to even speak. And so that kind
Yeah,
of gets that ear that when I tell my story about how wild I was, uh, didn't want to do, didn't want to be Christ like. I mean, I went to church, I sang in the choir and did everything, but I I was just going. It was like a social club
yeah.
for me.
Well, this actually gives me a good point as we're beginning to wrap up. How is the Kim Patton personality wise different now than when you were younger?
I don't think it's different because everybody say the only thing people say different is that I can't believe you married a pastor. But I'm still crazy. I love to dance. I'm silly. I just don't do the stuff that I used to do, like going to the club. I can't date guys anymore because I'm married. But some of my friends they still go out and drink and hang out. And I might go with them, but I'm not drinking. And they're like, what? Because I wasn't a drinker anyway. Because they say I would babysit the drink. But they still say I'm still crazy. I'm still the same Kim, but I correct them now with the word instead of my advice. I give them the
Yeah,
word. And if they don't want to accept the word, that's okay because That's your choice. It's between you and God. But I send them the word, and I talk to them about how He changed my life. But I'm still
Yeah,
the
yeah,
same Kim. I I have the fear of Him now that I love Him so much, Jesus, that I don't want to disappoint Him anymore.
yeah, yeah. One last thing that I will ask you before you said that you love him, you want to glorify your life, but it's actually every single day. How do you keep it consistent? Because it's not like every day, every minute of your life, you're going to say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to glorify God. I'm going to honor. How do you do it for the long term? What does that look like?
So I wake up, I have to start with the word. Because if I don't, the world, if something's gonna creep in, and and they're gonna get what what they don't. They're gonna get Kim and not what God wants me to give them when I go out and do my work. And so it's like you're right. I'm not like every single day, every single minute in my word, but it's ingrained in my head. Okay, when a teacher or a principal says something wrong to me when I walk through the door, or a student may
Mm-hmm.
cuss me out, or somebody in the grocery store, even in the car, I have to learn how to I just smile, or I may get ready to give them something, and then the Lord will say, let me take care of that. And it's like, okay, Lord, you're right, because the old Kim is getting ready to come back, and I want to take care of it. So He has to hit me up. He taps me on my shoulder all day long, because Kim will get in the way, and He's like, remember where I brought you from, because Kim, you created who you wanted it to be for over 50 years. So now I'm recreating who I
Yeah,
created.
yeah, 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 yeah. Love it, love it. Hey, where can they find more information about you, your organization, all of that, Kim?
At lifeanew.com, but they can go to www.elifeanew.com. And that's our website. And then if they want to email me, they can email me at kim@elifeanew.com. Yeah.
Very good. Kim, thank you very much for finding
Thank
time.
you,
We're
Tommy.
going to have to bring you on and talk more about different topics in the future.
Yes, would love that.
Yeah. Hey, I am glad. It would have been nice to have both you and Sherwin on, but Sherwin may not know this, but I do like you better.
Okay,
Thank
Tommy.
you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We'll talk soon.
Yes, have a good one.
All right. Bye.
Bye bye.